Okay, let's get started. So my name is Jackie Lee, and I'd like to welcome you to this webinar jointly hosted by Similarweb and Chartbeat. Today, we'll be covering holiday content trends as we close out 2021. Quick agenda for today. We'll start with a brief introduction of myself and Jill at Chartbeat. We'll then have a brief introduction to ground our time today. I'll then take the first half of today's talk, and I'll be using Similarweb insights to cover the high-level impact of COVID and Delta on yet another holiday season. I'll then transition to specific shopping trends we're already seeing across 4 priority shopping categories. After that, I'll pass things off to Jill to do a deeper dive into content discovery and engagement trends she's seeing. And finally, Jill will bring us home with recommendations on data-informed content strategies, AKA what you can do with this information after we end this webinar. I'll let Jill introduce herself first. Jill, you want to take it away?
Thanks, Jackie. Hello, everybody. My name is Jill, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Chartbeat. For those of you that may not be familiar with us, we are the world's leading content analytics platform that is used by content sites in about 70 countries around the world. And I have the absolute privilege of working with those publishers to try to make sense of the data and to try to build stronger and more data-informed best practices around how they create, promote, and curate their content. So I'm really excited today to join Jackie to talk through what that data says about the upcoming holiday season. So Jackie, I will kick it back to you.
Great, thanks, Jill. For those who were in the process of joining us when I did my original introduction, so my name is Jackie Lee, and I'm the head of publishers and media at Similarweb. I work with companies in this space on strategies to meet content discovery and engagement, ad sales, and consumer acquisition goals. And I joined Similarweb about 7 months ago from the New York Times, where I led audience and data strategy. So a quick introduction to ground us before we dive into the content we've prepared for you guys today. This year will be our second holiday season in a global pandemic. Over the summer, global vaccine rollouts provided a brief glimpse into what a return to normal could look like. Travel was up, masks were off, and grandmas were hugged. But this was juxtaposed against the background of a new variant, a blocked shipping canal, and continued global disruption of the supply chain. With so much uncertainty, it's more important than ever for brands and publishers to equip themselves with the most accurate, updated market insights in order to make the smartest content decisions. So what are some of those insights, and what does this all mean for the 2021 holiday season? So to start, let's address the 800-pound gorilla in the room. COVID and the Delta variant are continuing their carnage on supply chains around the world. According to Forbes, there are, and I quote, massive dislocations in the container market, shipping routes, ports, air cargo, trucking lines, railways, and even warehouses. The global shipping industry relies on 2 things, precision and predictability, both of which are in short supply given the unpredictable nature of this pandemic. In response, retailers like Amazon are already publishing Black Friday deals in October in an attempt to stretch out the buying season and ease the pressure on the supply chain and shipping channels as much as possible this year. The causes are multiple: staffing shortages, employees getting sick with COVID, the ever-changing lockdown rules, and you add in a dose of the pre-existing trade tension between the US and China. And what we're seeing are dislocations that are causing skyrocketing costs and massive delays across the entire shipping supply chain. Adding to this, guidance from the CDC has been a mess. One day, they're recommending another year of virtual gathering, especially for the unvaccinated. The next, the entire page on holiday guidance is gone. As of today, the unvaccinated include kids under the age of 16. But with Pfizer going for FDA approvals to start vaccinating kids before the holidays, it's possible there might be a surge in last-minute travel bookings in the coming weeks. So far, our best and most conservative guess is that in-person gatherings will be down for another year. And we're seeing this trend show up in the most recent travel site traffic trends, which peaked in July, but are already showing dips in August and September, which would be when families normally start booking travel for the holidays. We suspect this means that gift buying and giving will probably be predominantly through the mail again. And as we covered in the previous slide, that just means more pressure on the strapped shipping and supply chain industries. Since people are already being encouraged to do their holiday shopping by the biggest retailers now, let's look into what they're actually buying. So for these next 4 slides, I've actually snuck in some Easter eggs into the slide titles. Feel free to take some guesses in the chat on which songs they are, and I'll tell you at the end whether you've guessed right. We're going to start with the electronics category with a deep dive into trends that are already bubbling up. Starting at the subcategory level, last year, Apple dominated smartwatch sales with 74% of 4Q20 category revenue. Interestingly, since then, their share of revenue has dropped 30 points. Instead, search volumes for brands like Samsung watches are ticking up and giving Apple a run for its money. A surprise entrant in September's data is actually Amazon Renewed, which is a brand for pre-owned and refurbished products. Our hypothesis is that this may have to do with the rising visibility in climate change and product waste, a little bit to do with the yo-yoing employment market, with a pinch of used electronics re-entering the market after last year's surge tossed in for flavor. Another subcategory to keep an eye on is gaming. Gaming laptop was the #2 search term in electronics in September. On top of the brand names themselves, we are also seeing longer tail searches for actual product names like, and bear with me, I'm not a gamer, Asus ROG Zephyrus G14 and Razer Blade. Rounding out our categories insights is security cameras, for which revenue is up 87% year over year in September. A couple of brands to keep an eye on are Zosi, Eufy, and Arlo. And in terms of hot products themselves, retro is very much in right now. And I'm not just talking about the low-rise jeans gracing fashion runways this season. Nostalgia for Polaroids and physical CDs are pushing these products into double-digit year-over-year search volume growth. And as for how people are listening to the music they're playing these days, headphones are firmly lodged in the present, with searches for the general term headphones and the very brand-specific AirPods generating the highest average prices. For the kids, fidget toys seem to be all the rage. Surprised me too, because this has been around for a little while. Search clicks are actually up 10 times year over year. Although to be honest, we don't really know whether these are for bored kids or stir crazy adults. In terms of the top brands, Lego still reigns supreme, owning 6.5% of this category's revenue. But right behind this oldie but goodie in terms of unit sales is a pop culture legend, Funko. Lego's higher price points and higher brand recognition are still giving it the edge with revenue though. In terms of where people are buying, Amazon is still the reigning champ, but as you think about your affiliate partnerships, don't forget about other retailers like eBay, Walmart, and Target. There is substantial cross-browsing behaviors between these brands, so consider diversifying your partnerships this year. So what are people wearing while they're doing their online shopping? Well, surprise, surprise, PJs and athleisure are having another banner year. Sales were up by double digits in both categories last year for both men's and women's wear. This year, while softer than last, we're again seeing a second year of double-digit growth for nearly all comfy clothes categories in September. Our hypothesis is that Delta delayed companies' plans to return to the office, which then had a trickle-down effect on their clothing choices. That being said, while offices are still voluntary for returning to the office, people are beginning to leave the house for restaurants and entertainment. I don't know about you, but putting on my old jeans for the first time after 18 months of COVID was a sobering experience. So if my experience is anything to go by, I suspect that people re-entering society actually needed to buy some new jeans in some new sizes. And last but certainly not least, pets. For the furriest member of the family, we're seeing trends emerge for both the necessities and fun gifts for our pets. The top two search terms for pet supplies In September, we're dog harness, followed by blue buffalo. We have to make sure Fido is well fed and exercised before treating him or her to a multi-pet lamb chop chew toy or a zippy paws chew toy. For those with cats, and I don't have cats, so bear with me on these, the Podorama floppy fish and the Smarty Cat brand of toys reigned supreme. So that actually wraps up my part of today's webinar. For those folks who are playing along, the songs for each of these slides were Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Dreidel, 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 'Tis the Season to Be Jolly, and Jingle Bells. I'm now going to hand this off to Jill to do a deeper dive into content discovery and engagement trends. Jill, take it away.
Thanks, Jackie. So we're going to take a little bit of a turn here and talk less about consumer intelligence and really think about how those consumers are educating themselves about both the products that they're looking to purchase this holiday season, as well as, where to get the best deals. So as a reminder, this data that you're about to see is going to come from our global network of sites. And we're going to be looking at the traffic trends that happened around big shopping events in 2020. So that would be Black Friday and Cyber Monday. So we're going to dive right in and start by talking about overall traffic, kind of the week of Thanksgiving through Cyber Monday 2020. So predictably, we saw notably lower traffic than we would expect for a Thursday on Thanksgiving. People are spending time with their families and are spending a lot less time on online platforms discovering content. So around Thanksgiving, the pattern that we typically see is that there's a big surge in readership on the Wednesday before. So as people start to transition from the work part of the week to the holiday part of the week, we can see that first big spiky bit being the day before Thanksgiving. Now, the interesting thing here is, Black Friday looked a lot like a normal Friday, despite the fact that a good proportion of people, particularly in the US, do not work the day after Thanksgiving. So it was interesting to see that traffic is a little bit elevated on Black Friday. But as we look at Cyber Monday, again, we see this massive spike in traffic on Sunday night. And this was largely people who were getting ready, checking back in with their information to prepare for the Cyber Monday sales. So when we looked at the Sunday before Cyber Monday compared to the 3 previous Sundays, we see that traffic was up about 7%. And again, that was largely happening in the evening hours. Because these patterns are tied to kind of the rhythm of our lives, the timing really makes a big difference in terms of when people are most actively accessing content, which we'll see on this next slide. So during the 2020 traffic season, we saw a few big spikes in search. Again, these are readers who didn't necessarily know where they wanted to get their information. They were just looking for information to inform their holiday shopping. So as we look at 2020, which is the most representative year we can use to guess what this holiday season would be like, 2019 was a totally different story, but we can't base anything going forward on pre-pandemic levels. So there was 2 key trends in terms of that search traffic that we observed. If we look at that Wednesday before Thanksgiving, which last year was November 25th, there starts a spike at about 4 p.m. So between 4 p.m. and 5 p.m., traffic increased by 51% in just 1 hour. So we saw a doubling of this search traffic. So it kind of shows us that as the day winds down, that's when people are kind of flipping their brain over from work to shopping. And that traffic stayed high until about 10 p.m. in the evening, when we saw the normal precipitous drop that meant that people were going to bed. And just for reference, you may ask, well, we have a global data set, so what does 4 p.m. mean when we could be in multiple time zones across the world? In the case of this data, we're actually looking at the traffic pattern based on the user's local time of day. So again, really wanting to understand how our lifetime rhythms are affecting our content consumption habits. Now, on the Sunday before Cyber Monday last year, that was a November 29th, we saw that jump happen about between 7 and 9 p.m. So it was a little bit later in the day. But again, it was a lot of people who maybe had done previous research who were checking in for any last minute deals, last minute updates. And in just a few slides, we'll actually cover what people were really reading last year as they went through these traffic spikes. But just know, search traffic around shopping is already starting to grow now, and it's starting to rise in anticipation of those two big spikes that'll happen the day before these large shopping events. Now, social is another big way that people are sharing and discovering shopping content. And when we look at social media traffic at Chartbeat, we always like to look at it through two different lenses. And this terminology may be a little unfamiliar, so I'm just going to take a second. There is named social traffic, which is traffic from platforms that declare themselves. When a reader clicks a link on Facebook and they land on a publisher website, their browser captures that that click came from Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn and Instagram. Though if we're being honest, almost all named social traffic is coming from Facebook. For example, Twitter drives about 1/10 of the amount of traffic of a platform like Facebook. But there's this other side to social sharing, and that's what we call dark social. So it means that we know these links have been shared. We just don't get any information about where the share happened because it happened on a personal channel. So if I email a deal to my mother or I text my best friend about the next sale coming up at Walmart, when the reader clicks that link, we just won't know where they came from. However, we know that no human in the history of ever types in a URL unprompted, news.com/story/2021. No one does that. So we do know that the link was shared. And the interesting thing for us is that dark social represents between 45 and 50% of all social traffic. So about half the time we are sharing links with our networks, we are not doing it on a big platform like Facebook. We are doing it on a private channel. And so, we want to be able to foster both kinds of sharing to maximize our content distribution strategy. And what we're starting to see is these different types of social traffic do have different patterns timing wise. But once those readers land on a content website, they tend to behave exactly the same way. They often read a bulk of the page that they land on. So they spend a lot of time interacting with that page, but they are very unlikely to move on to a second piece of content. The most common behavior for social readers, whether from named platform or dark, is to read a single page and bounce right back to the platform where they received the link in the first place. So what do these different patterns throughout the day actually tell us about the difference between sharing on open and named platforms versus private sharing? So we saw very similar spikes in social traffic compared to what we saw with search. So again, we saw that big evening spike the day before Thanksgiving, but we saw some really interesting spikes that were happening the day before Cyber Monday. So as we look at these two lines, and this is hourly traffic, we see that there's kind of this lag between that dark social and the named social platform. So it looks like what's happening is, people are sharing, actually, I think, yes, people are starting to discuss things with their networks and then think about how they're sharing them on named social. So we can see that there is kind of that human digesting information before sharing. But it really does just go to show how important it is to make your content shareable. Adding WhatsApp buttons to the typical LinkedIn and Twitter sharing buttons, or just making it really easy for someone to post your content into a text message or a private email. So really just thinking about that two-pronged social strategy can help you maximize both types of reader habits. And, as we look at this, device type matters. So we know that typically on any given day, readers who come from outside platforms like search and social are disproportionately using mobile devices. So we can kind of see these patterns. You'll notice that tablet usage remains low, despite the fact that they, in previous shopping seasons, have been very popular products. We can still see that represents a very small proportion of traffic. And again, as we look at mobile versus desktop, now it's no surprise that most of our content consumption is happening on a mobile device. In fact, globally, daily mobile traffic tends to be between like 65 and 70% of traffic. So almost, 1 out of 3, if not 1 out of 4 visits to content are happening on our phones. It should make sense to any human being who looks at their weekly screen time on their phone and thinks, oh Lord, how much time did I just spend on my phone? And again, we do see that device is tied to those rhythms of life. So we see much more desktop traffic tied to really weekday workday. And when we are not at work, we tend to be on our phones. So what does that really mean for the holiday week? So we wanted to control for just those overall daily patterns of traffic by looking at these devices as a percentage of total traffic. So you can see once we actually get to Thanksgiving Day, desktop traffic drops way off and stays low until the work week starts again on Monday. So Monday, even though it is Cyber Monday, I don't know of any company that considers Cyber Monday a holiday. So most of us are probably doing our shopping while we are at our desk. So what you can see here is that the evening before Thanksgiving, what happened was that mobile traffic crossed 70% of total traffic and basically stayed there until, again, everybody went to bed on Sunday night. So as you think about building and curating this content, something that I observe with every partner that we work with, your curators, your promoters, your social teams are often working on a laptop or desktop, and therefore are thinking about that laptop or desktop experience. But especially around holiday times, when so many more of your readers are going to be experiencing that content on mobile, we have to make sure that we are checking in with that mobile experience, because things that may look great on desktop are often slightly disruptive on mobile. So again, thinking about how much of the screen your visual images take up, how easy it is to find and access links to affiliate links on your pages, as well as how you help each of those readers discover at least one more piece of content while you have them. While search and social readers tend not to click to a second page, well-placed links to related content can help you deepen those visits and also increase the chance that these holiday shoppers are going to come back to your site on a normal day to consume your typical types of content. So as we looked at those days, we wanted to take a look at not just how people were discovering content, but where specifically, what types of content were they really spending their time on? So for Black Friday, as well as the weekend leading up to Cyber Monday, we took a look at the top 1,000 pages in our network, but we looked at it in a very particular way. Number one, we looked specifically at articles. We kind of filtered out all the home pages and landing pages. And we rank those 1,000 stories by the total amount of attention time that was spent on those pages. Chartbeat measures very granularly whether a reader is interacting or not. And so we wanted to look at not just what were the most popular pages to click on, but what pages really garnered the most attention. And on Black Friday, when we looked at that, only about 4% of those top articles were Black Friday related, but they accounted for 5% of engagement. And so what it really tells us is that not only are people starting to consume more shopping content on Black Friday, they're actually spending notably more time with those stories than they are with other topics, because even though it is a big shopping day, there's still other news going on. So, really thinking about how we make that shopping content an engaging experience can help our sites become a go-to place to go when they need information about products or deals. Just one other interesting thing we noticed in the run-up to Black Friday was that content about what was streaming on services was unusually popular. So if you do want to pair your shopping content with more kind of holiday prep content, people are going to be looking for things to watch over the holiday weekend as they're kind of doing that shopping as a second screen experience. Now on Cyber Monday, there really wasn't much content consumption on Cyber Monday itself. The consumption all basically happened over the weekend. And we saw that there was even more content consumption. So about 6% of the top 1,000 articles were Cyber Monday focused. And again, the engagement per story was notably higher than the other content that we observed during that period. So it is a great way to capitalize on that natural attention for shopping content. And we did notice, in actually like looking at these stories and figuring out what they were about, that obviously they're different types of shopping experiences. So there was different types of content consumption. Around Black Friday, most of the top trending pages were store specific, because obviously, even though it was a really weird shopping season, people still had plans to physically shop in person. So we saw roundups of the latest deals at Walmart, Target. We do have an international audience, so Primark was also very popular on Black Friday. And another phenomenon we noticed around shopping that has appeared in other content areas is live blogs. So for those of you that don't know what I mean, that is a single page where small updates are chronologically posted at the top of the article. Now, we've seen that this was a very popular format for updates on coronavirus and things like elections, but that habit is starting to spill over into non-news content like shopping. So these were pages where people were checking back in through the day to find the newest and most up-to-date information. Why were they looking for up-to-date information? Well, again, it was a lot about last-minute deals and restock items. So updating pages that showed when the big box stores were going to be getting new things in stock were very, very popular. And I anticipate, especially given the trends that Jackie shared earlier, that with these delays in the supply chain, we are going to see a lot of people who are looking for that restock information. Now, Cyber Monday was all about tech. By far and away, the biggest content consumption the weekend before Cyber Monday was all about Amazon deals. And it'll be interesting to watch this holiday season as they are starting to post those deals much earlier than they have been. We also saw that price-based content was unusually popular, particularly information about deals that were kind of sub $50. There were a couple of trending pieces of content about $100 or less, but it seemed like 50 was really the sweet spot. And most of the non-outlet specific content was very, very tech focused. So we saw, the information that Jackie shared about consumer habits. So it just really shows how both of those data signals can work together. Cool. So knowing all that, what should you actually do differently this holiday season to capture all that attention that's going to be growing between now and basically the beginning of December? So we're going to walk you through some considerations you may want to make. Now, one thing that we know, evenings are not usually a heavy staffing time for most sites. And as a former editor myself, it makes me a little squeamish to say this, but given that there is going to be so much audience attention the night before Thanksgiving and the night before Cyber Monday, it may make sense to evaluate your staffing levels to make sure that as people are interacting on social, your team is interacting on social, to make sure that you're watching your real-time data, to make sure that your content is a good experience, right? A lot of what we talk about in Chartbeat is the difference between getting a click and getting a read. Small adjustments during those evening hours can make a huge difference. So you just might want to think about who's going to be having their eyes on the content while these shoppers are flooding to your site. Again, that Sunday before Cyber Monday is a big opportunity. Ordinarily, Sunday is the lowest trafficked day of the week, but this is one of the cases where it's just such a big event that you know you're going to have a higher than typical audience. And given how people are interacting with this content, focus on mobile. Now, from studying mobile readers, we know a couple of things about them. They do not like cluttered layouts. They tend to bounce quickly from pages that take a long time to load. And we have to think very specifically about recirculation, right? When we look at our desktop site, that side rail has a lot of must reads, you might like, popular content. But your mobile readers often don't get served much additional content from your site. So especially with articles that are trending well on mobile, think about your related linking strategy and putting links very specifically into that content. So we know that there are very different behaviors between search and social readers. Search readers went to that platform with a specific question. They knew what they were looking for, and they chose the content that was most likely to give them the information they were seeking. So as you put related links in those pages, remember, these are not wanderers, these are specific travelers. Make sure the related content is very closely related. Whereas on social, we weren't necessarily looking for top headphones or Walmart deals. We just happened to see that someone in our peer network posted this content. So social readers are just more likely to recirculate to anything that is closely related. It doesn't have to be quite as specific. And then lastly, again, those patterns. Now is the time when people are starting to do that research, and most of that research is happening on search engines. The earlier you create your shopping content pages, the better they will index when that search behavior really starts to ramp up over the next few weeks. And especially with this holiday shopping season starting early, you need to be creating your pages now. Even if your content and your recommendations are not completely set in stone, having that page with just a little bit of search-friendly content is going to help you index over time. And then as we get to those last weeks, think a lot about your social promotion, right? The readers have educated themselves through search, and now they want to show off what they've learned to their peer networks. So really think about the timing of your strategy and where you're spending your time. And then lastly, because we did talk about those differences between search and social readers, just a reminder that you have to have separate strategies for each of those audiences. In search, again, search is a long game. Those pages can trend for days, if not weeks. They like simple, straightforward, not a lot of flowery prose. They just want to know what they want to know so they can get back to their research. And again, that linking strategy is going to help you actually build the loyalty of those shoppers after the event is over. And again, as you think about search, those live blogs are just becoming a really popular format. On social, it really is creating those pathways to sharing, both on named social platforms as well as private channels. So evaluate your pages from a user experience perspective and try to find ways to make it more shareable. Another interesting thing we noticed from social was it was very geo-located. So people were sharing, when will our local Walmart be open during this shopping season? What do we need to know about our local area? So if you do have more locally focused rather than nationally focused content, that can be really successful content for your social sharing audience. And again, social is most popular at night. We've observed even outside of holidays that the most popular time for readers to click back to websites and engage with content from social media is between 6 p.m. and midnight in their local time. So just think about your staffing hours and just make sure that you're there to interact with readers at the times that make the most sense for their day-to-day habits. So that was a look at the content consumption and engagement trends that we've been observing in 2020. And you can really see some clear tiebacks to those consumer trends that Jackie was sharing. Now, we know that these are two very different data sets and that they're huge data sets. So, we know that you all will have questions. If you do want to enter them into this chat, Jackie and I can answer your questions live. As you type in those questions, just one last housekeeping note, you will receive a follow-up email with access to the slides. So if you didn't quite catch every little nuance of every graph or data point, you can go back to review it at your convenience. And you'll also get a replay of the webinar if you did want to rewatch a bit or you wanted to share with colleagues. And with that, I will just check in to see, do we have any questions that have come through the chat?
Yara, would you mind moderating for us?
Sure. So we have one question coming in from Jess. What are some peak times for engagement on social fronts?
Again, for holiday related traffic, that is the night before Thanksgiving and the night before Cyber Monday. Those are the two highest traffic and engagement times. And again, social, we do check, we check our Facebook, we check our text messages throughout the day, but during typical 9 to 5 working hours, again, people may look at that social post, but won't necessarily come back and engage. What we're seeing is that evening hours are the most successful time for both interactions, clickbacks, and sharing. But one thing I will just call out, as you look at your social data, we did a study that pretty clearly showed that there is absolutely no correlation between content that readers are sharing and content that readers actually click through to and read. So as you monitor your social data, make sure that you're thinking about both on social platform data like shares and comments, as well as on-site traffic to your owned and operated platforms, because there could be a disconnect between what people are kind of, I think of it as kind of performative sharing versus the content that they're actually engaging with. Okay, I will jump in for Yara. Sophie has a question. We mentioned that publishing Black Friday, Cyber Monday pages now is the key to maximize ranking. Would you recommend publishing new articles now or updating articles from last year, which will have more search authority? I mean, I think that is ripe for experimentation. Right? I can make educated guesses about what the algorithms are going to like, but we all know that a lot could have changed in terms of how they serve content in a year. So now is the time where you really might want to dig in and say, okay, let's test out updating content on some of our pages from last year. And again, when you update it, really also think about the linking out strategy, which is a key part of search engine optimization. And then creating some new shells that are going to go up now and kind of live from now until, say, December, if not, Lord only knows when the holiday shopping season is going to end this year.
I think one
So
thing to also add on
go ahead,
that,
Jackie.
to Jill, just to jump in, in terms of changes this year, to be completely transparent, there is a lot that we are it's up in the air, honestly, for this year, between second year of COVID. There's also been an update in Google AdWords ranking algorithm and the inputs that they put into that that happened sometime in Q2, Q3 of this year. So definitely just to reiterate what Jill was saying, testing is absolutely key.
Yeah, I think that's the key to any of these strategies, no matter what topic we're talking about. Your site, your content, and your audience are going to be unique. As much as I wished that there were some silver bullet things I could say that would guarantee you high attention, that's just not the case. So especially now, before you get into the rush of the holiday, it's just a great time to just like curate a couple of quick pages, put them up, and kind of watch them for a week. Because usually what'll happen is there's typically some pretty clear takeaways about what your audience does and does not enjoy, as well as what does and does not rank on the algorithm. So experiment now so that when you're in the thick of the holidays, when you're short-staffed because your people are taking vacation time, you have that idea of, no, we learned this in the early part of the news cycle. We're going to apply this.
Jill, I'll go ahead and moderate on behalf of Yara for a second. So we have a question from Peter. You mentioned live articles, blogs with shopping and Black Friday content. What are the benefits specifically, given they can be more labor intensive? Is there evidence that readers like to consume shopping content in this way?
Yeah, it's a good point. I was really surprised to see how popular live blogs were about shopping content. It literally was unexpected. We knew it from early COVID. We've observed it every election for the past like 4 to 5 years since we've really started doing election analyses. And so it was surprising to me. Now, I think the benefit of a live blog is that with every new piece of information, you don't necessarily have to figure out how to work it into the existing narrative on an article or start a new article from scratch. I think if you plan beforehand to say, these are the people who are going to be monitoring the trends, who are going to be updating the trends. I think if you have your live blog set up in advance, you can create workflows whereby it's really easy to just feed in 3 to 4 sentence updates, because you, again, do not have to think about making them standalone pieces of content. And again, they're great ways to surface other content, right? So Amazon is restocking this. Target just put this type of TV on sale. If you're shopping for TVs, here's our roundup of the 10 best TVs for 2021. So it has a lot of benefits. And frankly, I mean, my editorial days are 7 years in the past. I can say that for coverage of things like hurricanes and elections, live blogs were actually much easier than managing multiple pages. So I think as long as you're kind of set up to do this and you have an internal system for just feeding these updates in, like, in fact, I've even seen some people will just like designate some reporters who are going to be on a single topic and just pull in things from like their Twitter feed. So if your reporters are tweeting things out, there's a lot you can automate around live blogs to take the curation out. But, I think that as a format, it's been resonating so well in 2020 and 2021 that it is an interesting experiment for how to cover events which are kind of happening and unfolding over multiple hours or days, rather than like single monolithic events that you're just kind of covering in retrospect. So for any plan breaking news, I would recommend that you experiment with a live blog, just because of how successful I've seen them become in the previous few years.
I think one thing I would also add to that is that there is precedent. If you think about previous years when there were doorbusters, even when it was like a print publication, there would be like a doorbuster deal at midnight, another one dropping at 1 a.m, another one dropping at 2 a.m. So over the last, not even the last 2 years, over decades, that behavior is sort of ingrained, and people have been a little habituated to it. And I think also, we've seen Amazon have their Prime Day sales and their previous Black Friday, Cyber Monday sales, where they have like a timed release. So people are sort of, they've already been sort of taught to wait for that updated information. And this year with all these shipping and supply chain challenges, I think that's something too where people will be sitting and acknowledging that there's probably going to be updates, like real-time updates as stuff comes in.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of the live blog is when people know those drops are coming, your live blog has become a destination that people know about. So again, if you can, start them early and habituate people to the fact that that page exists. So when they're like, oh, they warned me that another Amazon deal drop was coming at this time, then I know I can get the fastest and most up-to-date information from that live blog format. And again, it is just a great way to build brand loyalty. Literally training your readers, we are the source of information you need. Skip the Googles, skip the Facebooks, come to us. We'll save you time. And especially when it comes to the competitive holiday shopping season, timing is really important to this proportion of the audience.
Oh, Jill, you're on mute.
Cool. As Peter did mention in a reply to the comment, you can be a big advocate of live blog, but this is often affiliate or commercial content. So, again, that's why I recommend going experimental rather than all in. And then as always, I'm not taking into account any, partnerships that you may have and any agreements you've made with your affiliates in terms of how and where that content will be displayed. So, obviously, please don't get me in trouble. The Chartbeat lady said, you're going to internally have a sense for whether that's right for your site or not. I'm seeing very strong signals that this is at the very least worth like a small experiment this year, because it could be a great way to think about your shopping content strategy going forward.
I think one thing to also add to, given that there is a degree of, I think, real time, especially this year, with similar web trends, because there is a sort of a 2.5, 3 day lag between Black Friday and Cyber Monday, our trending search terms are actually updated every 48, 72 hours. And so you can see for folks that are using Similarweb, you can sort of see by Monday morning what's been trending over the last couple of days and can make adjustments in near real time at that point, which is something that I think is really powerful.
Yep. And then, from the Chartbeat side, real-time data is what we do, helping you make those quick decisions after the content has been published. Where are you promoting it? Is that promotion working? Can we experiment with different messaging on social media? Do we need to make small adjustments? Like if we notice we've got the top 10 toys this year, even things such as moving a product up or down can affect how much of the page people see. So also make sure that you're monitoring things in real time, because while you're going to make great educated guesses before that content goes out, readers can always throw you a curveball, and the closer you watch them, the quicker you can react. And again, in a minute by minute updating situation like this, that ability to react quickly can help you, again, see a greater impact from the work that you've done with this content.
Jill, one of the things I'm thinking about is, do you remember Tickle Me Elmo from a couple of years ago? It wasn't in real time at all, but it's like, who could have seen that would have been the thing?
You never know. I mean, I'm an exennial. So my generation still harkens back to Cabbage Patch Kids rather than Furbies and Elmos as the key thing to have. But yeah, there also can be surprises within that data. You never know what's going to get hot the second that people start like shopping and digging in. So, it is worth just really checking back in with those trends and making sure, there's nothing surprising in the data, but those surprising and weird things, I think, create the best conversations around audience. why is everybody interested in, I'm trying to think of like a random thing, like socks are really popular. Oh, it's because we might go into another winter lockdown and we won't wear shoes for 3 months, right? So you really never know how these like unexpected patterns of life are going to affect our shopping and reading habits. So, this, I think, there are some solid takeaways here, right? These patterns are pretty pronounced and are pretty dependable, but it's really those sub patterns that I think are going to inform some really exciting content between now and the end of the year.
Cool. So I'm just keeping an eye on the chat and the Q&A. It doesn't look like we've got any more questions. If there's nothing else, on behalf of Jill and myself, thank you so much for joining us today. As Jill mentioned, everyone here will be receiving a link to this recording as well as the slides. So if you'd like to explore that data in a little bit more detail, thank you again for joining us, and hopefully we can connect again soon.
Amazing. Yes. Thanks everybody so much for your time. And we hope to see you in a future joint jam between Chartbeat and Similarweb.